Welcome back to the Eck Attack Podcast. As always, I'm your host, an elephant in therapy for his fear of small things, and joined as always is my co-host, his mouse therapist, helping him get through it, Z. How you doing today?
Oh, not so bad. How you, Jay?
I'm doing quite well.
So we had a pretty good week of content, right?
I think we did, yeah.
Various things to be watching.
Oh, yeah. I, for one, caught up on the Bad Batch Star Wars show. If you don't know about it, you don't know about it. We'll talk about that. We'll probably talk about Loki. I don't know what you want to start with.
I think we should start with the Bad Batch.
I agree, because that really has much to talk about, and we only had one episode of Loki. So
yeah, we only had one episode of Loki. You watched the whole first half of the first season of the Bad Batch, right? I did. Because you haven't been watching it. I have been. I don't know if we made it clear in the last episode, but Star Wars is like, it's like my thing.
It's Z's favorite thing.
It's like my favorite thing. I'm all about it. I got all kind of the merchandise and whatnot.
I have my own favorite thing, but we don't have to talk about that right now.
Nah,
You'll have to guess, listeners.
I'm a bit of a consumer when it comes to Star Wars. Mega consumer. So yeah, I'm all about it. So like I said, I've been watching it weekly, but you binged it all so we could talk about it here.
Yeah, of course.
So what did you think of the first half of the first season there? Oh, well, I guess real quick though. So we will be spoiling everything from that. Oh yeah,
this is just, if anyone's listening ever, just know that we're always going to spoil. We'll always say it just in case, just out of respect. We don't want to actually spoil anybody. But if you haven't watched the Bad Batch, this might not be for you as much. 1 through 8. The episodes 1 through 8.
As well as also, I'll just throw out there for the Clone Wars, for Rebels, pretty much any Star Wars animation stuff that might tie in.
Yeah, we're not going to hold back. Anything that could help us with a theory or analyzation.
Any rampant speculation, it'll be out there. So what did you think?
I thought it was okay.
Just okay.
I'll be honest, I'm not crazy about this series at the moment. I did really like that Cad Bane showed up. That was
spoiled. We're just going to throw that right out there, eh?
We said spoilers.
Nah, no, I'm just saying.
What
do you think about all the episodes before him?
They were okay.
Oh.
I liked the one with Rex came back. That was fun because Rex was back. It was good, but it wasn't really like a Mandalorian to me. Like, I wasn't super invested in it.
I'd have to agree. I would say it's not on that level for me. Yeah, each individual episode's not as impactful as a lot of these. Like, not to say they're filler, because they are important for, character development and stuff. Like, stuff does happen for the characters. Maybe not the overarching, plot threads that are going on this season. And I do think that calling things filler can be a bit overused sometimes, because people are so hyper-fixated on the
big action scenes.
Yeah, the big plot points moving forward. Whereas, if you really got all that, I think people might find it's not as interesting as they think, right?
Yeah, because you gotta have downtime between it. It can't just be constant.
Yeah. So there is downtime episodes, I guess, which are a little bit less focused, again, on the main plot threads, but are still relevant to the characters and their growth. And it's very character focused, right?
Right.
Compared to a series like Clone Wars, which was an anthology that focused, especially in the earlier seasons, focused on a lot of different characters within the same seasons.
Yeah.
It would just jump around a lot. You got a lot of different viewpoints. Towards the end, it's certainly sort of
focused up.
Yeah, focused on it. Towards the end, it really got to be more. It was rare you'd have an episode that didn't have Anakin, Obi-Wan, or Ahsoka. One of the three of them, if not all three of them, a lot of the times. But this is even more focused than that, right? It's just following the Bad Batch. And that way it's closer to episodic structure of Rebels.
Right.
It's not anthology.
Which I have not watched.
Right. But in that show, it follows a core group. And it's also similar to the episodic structure of Rebels in that there's less of the arcs. Clone Wars had a lot of arcs where it would tell stories in 4 episode chunks, which would tell a really contained story, and then you jump off to somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this isn't that. Again, because every episode focuses on the Bad Batch, you don't really need
a whole bunch.
Yeah, you don't need arcs like that, because every episode just kind of moves it forward a little bit. So what do you think of the characters? What do you think of the titular Bad Batch?
I like them. I certainly enjoyed when they appeared in the Clone Wars in the last season. The final season, as it's called. I like Tech. I like Mako, Wrecker, Hunter, Omega. I think that's all fun.
I would personally say I think they're more refined and better in this series than they were in that arc of the Clone Wars. I think maybe in the arc of the Clone Wars, given that it was just their first appearance and all, they were a bit two-dimensional.
Right, yeah. Because, did they plan to do a Bad Batch series before, as they released the last season? Or was it just because fans were whoa, this is really cool, let's do it.
So,
do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so due to the lead times involved in animation, when the final season of the Clone Wars, that is, aired last year, this show was well into production.
Of course, right.
Basically, the way Dave Filoni says it is that, if I remember, when they were making it, they decided that they liked these characters, and that they'd always kind of wanted to do a sequel of some kind, and so this was they thought this was sort of the natural choice. So, yes, when the final season aired, this was already well into production. I suppose, reaction and, fan reception is going to determine potentially if it gets more seasons.
Right.
I guess, but yeah, the first season was kind of just made, it was just a decision they made over there.
They're just like, well, I think, yeah, they thought they were strong enough characters to warrant. I don't say I don't like it, but it's nothing crazy. And obviously, everything can't be like, whoa, everything can't be a Mandalorian.
Again, yeah, I agree. I would say it's much more.
I'd say it's much more for fans that are really into the Clone Wars. Like if you
or just Star Wars in general, yeah. I would totally agree.
It's not for your like the Mandalorian was made as like a hey, if you don't really like Star Wars, then this is kind of your show you can do because it's more serious. Like it's not as goofy and kiddie as people think Star Wars is. It's more like bounty hunters and all the stuff that attracts like oh this is the cool Chad stuff when they're hunting people and the Mandalorians and their cool armor and. You know, Luke's here, and it's like all the like mainstays people come for certain groups of fans. Not that there's nothing wrong with that.
I would agree. I think you're right on target with that. I would say this is much more comparable to like Rebels in who it's going to appeal to. I would say it's potentially a little more
niche.
Sort of. I was going to say a little more grown up, so maybe less niche.
Yeah.
Rebels literally aired on like Disney
XD.
Yeah, it aired on, which again, it wasn't super, but it was a little more child friendly, I would say, than Clone Wars.
Right.
Star Wars: The Clone Wars by the end was, again, I'm not gonna pretend like it was this graphic war film or whatever, but characters died in that like pretty consistently.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
minor character like between just like clones would die in the war, and they didn't pull punches on that a lot of the times, and like actual named characters would also die, and sometimes it was relatively graphic. Again, obviously, it's not blood spraying at the screen or anything.
Yeah, there's a point in which
but there was impilations and stuff.
Implications. Implications.
People were impaled.
People died.
There was that move they did a lot where someone would like walk up behind somebody and then turn their lightsaber on through them. That happened a lot, and you would see it like sprout out. Like there wasn't a lot of blood or anything necessarily, but it got pretty graphic in the way they were killing people.
As graphic as they really could.
Yeah, a lot of people were getting shot to death. Like you would see people die, which like
get riddled with lasers.
Yeah, which isn't necessarily even something you see a lot in the Star Wars movies. So Rebels is a little more kid friendly than that, and I would say that the Bad Batch here kind of maybe makes a difference because not as many people are dying just due to the nature of this show. It's not a war. It's not about a war really, like the Clone Wars was.
Well, then the war is over. Quote unquote.
So
there's no more war.
But I would agree that in sort of who it appeals to, it's a little more specific. Yeah, I would agree it's got a little less mass appeal than The Mandalorian. This is sort of the true, like, sequel to the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So obviously people who are into that, and it's been said, I've seen a lot of people prefer to say this is essentially the 8th season of the Clone Wars that we didn't get, right?
Right, yeah.
It's clearly picking up a lot of characters, a lot of plot lines, and people had referred to Rebels as like a sequel to the Clone Wars, because it does have some returning characters. And
like Ahsoka.
Like Ahsoka
some
and
of the clones are back.
Yeah, but this clearly is much more of a direct, like, sort of sequel. Obviously, just timeline-wise, it picks up right where Clone Wars ends. Really, they kind of overlap just a little bit with the first episode of this show and the last couple of the Clone Wars. But yeah, so we kind of touched on a little, but like, you think the Bad Batch themselves are interesting?
Yeah, I do think they're interesting. And I like their dynamic, kind of, they all got different skills and they all kind of clash. They all got very distinct personalities. And they all, fight amongst themselves and stuff.
I agree. Like you said, or whoever. I think in the Clone Wars in that arc, they were a little two-dimensional, but obviously now that we have a full show that just focuses on them, I think they get a lot more fleshed out. They have a lot more time to get into some of that stuff.
Yeah.
They are less, again, just two-dimensional. They're in the Clone Wars arc, it kind of seemed like they were defined by their their modifications there. Yeah. Whereas in this one, they go beyond that. Best example I can think of is in the most recent episode 8 there. It's Echo, Wrecker, and Omega, and they're walking back and they're being watched by those scavengers.
Yeah, and they kind of just, and they can
see them. Yeah, they pick them up. And Echo, who is obviously like one of the more like tech savvy, sort of like thinkerish ones of them, he says he's like, oh, we're being watched, or whatever. And Wrecker, who is like
the
quote unquote dumb one, the big muscly brute.
He's dumb.
He is, but he's like, yeah, I picked him up, right?
Yeah.
And I really like that because I was like, well, Wrecker, he's a bit slower than them sometimes or whatever.
But he's still a trained.
Yeah, he's still an incredibly trained, like,
he's a special ops unit.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. The Bad Batch
they're the Bad Batch. They're not just the Bad Batch because they're like, oh, it's so funny that this one's smart and this one's dumb and this one's like Wolverine. No, like when it comes down to it, they complete missions that no one else will do.
Yeah, in that same episode, like, he knows how to disarm bombs and stuff. Right?
Yeah, he teaches Omega how to do it.
He's not just the strong one that they call when they need to throw stuff. They all obviously have their specific proficiencies,
but at a baseline, they all have just training, like they're all special ops training,
which I really like that detail.
Yeah.
So what do you think about then D. Bradley Baker, who is he's the voice of the clones, voice of all the clones in the Clone Wars, and so he's the voice of the Bad Batch.
I like it. I saw an interview where he talks about how he does each clone, and he's like, well, Wrecker's like this, and Tech is like this, and I think he's very talented for doing that exceedingly well. Even more so when I to do a Rick and Morty thing, but I remember in the episode when they go to Rick Atlantis, when Village City, I was like, oh, give Justin Roiland an Emmy for doing all these voices. He's just doing the same voice.
He's just doing one voice.
He's doing one voice because they all have the same voice. But this one is more, I don't know if he still get an Emmy, but I think it's more apt because he's changing his voice for each character, but he's still playing all four of them.
The Bad Batch in particular, because they are like slightly different on a physical level or whatever, he gets to play with that a little more. Mm-hmm. I know it's almost a cliche thing to say about D. Bradley Baker's performances of clones, but even in the Clone Wars, you kind of can forget that they're different.
Yeah.
Or that they're the same, because they feel different, right? I think he really does a good job of, even in the Clone Wars where they sound more similar, of putting different inflections and stuff. Like, I think you really can tell, like, when he's doing Rex, for example, right? Just the inflection. Again, that one's more close to, whereas in the Bad Batch, like, obviously Wrecker has a physically different voice, and Tech does, and even Crosshair. Hunter is probably the most, like,
clone-like of them.
Baseline of them, and then Echo obviously is just a reg, so he just has the normal clone voice. But yeah, I think he does excellent. I think it's funny when the credits come up every week and it says the Bad Batch, or D. Bradley Baker as the Bad Batch. He's just all of them.
He does all of them at once.
Because in this one he really is carrying the whole show.
If Omega was a boy, like, he'd just do Omega too.
Yeah, that's probably why. Because they were like, man, if we make him a boy, we just have to get D. Bradley Baker.
We have to pay him more money. Overtime.
Just be doing them all. So I guess then, so do you like Omega? She's obviously the true new
I like Omega. I do like Omega. I like the trope of just, like, them kind of fumbling around raising a kid, and she's not like an annoying kid. Like, she's smart, and she just is inexperienced, which is fine like a kid. I don't like when kids are just like in Temple of Doom. Oh no, Mr. Jones, what are we gonna do?
Dr. Jones.
But he's more of a character voice because it's 1980, and who needs sensitive race politics when you can do whatever you want?
So Omega, I agree. She's like competent. She listens. She is still a kid, and like that comes through. But she's not hapless.
She's not like, what are we gonna do, Wrecker?
Yeah, totally foolish or anything. If anything, there's something like going on there with her, right?
Yeah.
If anything, she's more than it kind of seems.
She's almost all of them.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea. That's kind of the theory that's been floating around.
Because in the episode when they land on that moon, she tracks that beast. Like, Hunter's like, this is how I'm tracking, and she goes, okay. And then when Hunter gets knocked out, she just does it. And it's almost and it goes beyond just, oh, I saw Hunter do it, I'm gonna kind of copy it. She kind of does it because she just like, oh, I can. She's kind of unconsciously doing it.
Yeah,
like muscle
it's
memory
interesting.
Almost.
In the first episode, there she seems pretty good with a blaster.
Oh yeah. And
she like disarms
Crosshair, right?
Crosshair, yeah. So like it seems like she's pretty competent with that, even though that's presumably the first time she ever held a blaster.
I always like that. I did like the scene when they get to the planet with Deserter Clone and his wife, and
she's McQueen.
Yeah, and she's like, "Whoa, dirt and the sun."
That's good. That's a common trope in Star Wars.
Which I don't.
That's like the Rey thing, right?
Yeah,
she's like, I didn't know there was this much green in the whole galaxy.
Which is dumb. Because it's a fucking galaxy. If you know what a galaxy is, there's gotta be, like...
Did she think every planet was deserts?
Come on, Rey. I mean, she is... Can Rey even read? Like, should Rey be able to read?
No, I don't reckon she can read.
I don't think she should, though. A dirty sand planet. I'll stand by that. That's Mary Sue shit. Let's fire Kathleen Kennedy.
Come on.
No, we're gonna do this
Steady
on. No, we're not those kind of Star Wars fans, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, see, I guess
Zach is, though. I'm not.
No, I'm not. I like Star Wars. Kathleen Kennedy does good most of the time. I'd say.
That's not what he says on podcast.
No, come on.
When the mics go up, it's like a whole different story.
Steady on. I guess, so that's, again, a bit of a center point of this series is like all the, I don't know what you call them, I guess cameos.
Yeah.
So we got Cutler Queen in
which is not a cameo for me because I have no...
Oh, so he's in season 2 of the Clone Wars.
Okay. I don't remember the Clone Wars super well.
From the season 2 episode, The Deserter.
Oh, okay, right.
Which is where they're fighting a battle on Saluk Mai, and Rex gets shot, and they bring him to his farm, and they're like, hey, can you help? And then, and then Rex has like a bit of a crisis where he's like,
we're only built for war.
Yeah, you're a deserter, and you're leaving, you're abandoning your brothers. And Cut's kind of like, yeah, but like, I didn't really choose this war. Like, none of us did. And instead, I'm helping like my family, and that's noble in its own way.
It's a different kind of noble.
And Rex kind of leaves that episode, and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to tell him about you. You live your life, man. And it's nice. It's a good growth moment for Rex. I think it's one of several across that series that makes Rex into the guy we see him as in this show.
Mm-hmm.
Then he obviously also returns.
Right.
Is there any other big ones? Oh, Fennec Shand. From
the assassin.
Yeah, so
assassin
she's in The
woman.
Mandalorian.
Who's the same voice? The same woman who plays the Mandalorian is the voice actor.
Yeah, they got Ming-Na Wen back to do the voice as well.
There's also Mai in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Or May.
Agent May. She's kind of a bit of a nothing character at this point still. We don't know hardly anything about her.
Yeah, we just know that she's an assassin that is comparable enough that Din in The Mandalorian is like, you're pretty good.
And she shows up in this. I mean, they beat her, obviously, like, eventually, but she does well. And then the most recent one was Cad Bane.
Which I'm very excited about.
Which was the coolest one.
Which, insanely, because, gotta love fucking Daddy fucking Steve Jobs listening to me through my phone, is as I was watching the episode of The Bad Batch, I started getting Star Wars stuff that I had never gotten before, and it just showed me the screenshot, the shot of Cad Bane.
It was
and
also...
I was like, I guess Cad Bane's in this episode.
It was also spoiled for me before I got to see it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Which I think is a bit of a shame, because that would have been the type of thing that would have really blew my mind.
Really,
I'd have gone full soulboy on that one.
Okay. Cad Bane.
He's on the face. I'd have been real excited. But still, it was cool regardless.
Yeah.
I guess, obviously compared to, say, a Colt LaQueen and a Captain Rex, right? As we said before, those are just also voiced by D. Bradley Baker. So, like, I remember my silliness when I was like, oh, they got Rex. They got Rex. And then you're like, oh, wait, it's the same guy who's doing this whole show.
All right, now do Rex lines.
Do a sixth voice for us, could you?
Yeah.
And the same with Colt LaQueen. So, like, that wasn't as big of a get. First, and also it's animation, so it's easier than, like, actually getting a guy
in a room and getting him in wardrobe and makeup.
And again, Fennec Shand, like, that's cool, but also that's a character we saw for the first time just 2 years ago in The Mandalorian, and we just saw her again last season.
Yeah.
Cad Bane
is a character we haven't seen since the Clone Wars.
This is the first time we've seen him since season, I want to say 4 of the Clone Wars.
In the arc where he tries to steal the shit from the temple, right? Isn't that the last arc?
No, that's the first arc, big arc he's in. That's in season 2. Season 4, the last arc we see him in is when Count Dooku recruits him and Embo and a bunch of other bounty hunters. There's like a contest to see who are the best bounty hunters, and undercover Obi-Wan gets in there. Obi-Wan does a face-off.
Takes his face off?
Kind of. He gets some face surgery. Yeah, he does a face-off, and then
does he get his surgery reversed?
They put a worm in his throat, and that changes his voice, and then they do they change his face. It goes back, though. It's no big deal. It's not permanent.
Yeah, they're Jedi. They got magic.
I don't remember how he does it, but it's so that Obi-Wan can infiltrate this plot to assassinate the Chancellor. That was the last time we saw Cad Bane. Was in the Clone Wars arc, which was in 2012. So it's been nearly 10 years.
Which is funny is that if he had just let that go on, probably no Emperor.
Yeah.
Probably still Emperor because he's still the Emperor, so he probably
also he probably would have had some backup plans regardless because
he's the Emperor. He's the most powerful.
Well, because he's also the one who ordered his own assassination, presumably.
Yeah, so you could be like, I got Cad Bane on it. He'd be like, all right, cool. I'll wait for Cad Bane to show up then.
It's if only they knew. But yeah, so it's been almost 10 years since we've seen him on screen, which is not the case for Rex, as again we saw him in Rebels and just in the last season of Clone Wars. It's not the case for, I don't know, it wasn't the case for Ahsoka or anything. Like this has been a good gap for him. And I think he's returned in pretty much true form. I don't know, it's Cad Bane.
He's hunting people, he's got his cool hat.
He's doing the voice, he's got his toothpick. I thought it was great. And I will say, it highlights the increase in quality of the animation. That's something we didn't really mention. It looks so crisp on this show.
It really does.
It's incredible. It makes me, I gotta believe that they've been doing it long enough or something that somehow they've gotten the cost down, because remember when the Clone Wars was airing on Cartoon Network, it essentially operated at a loss. Right. George Lucas just pushed it through as like a passion project of his, because those were coming in at like, I think around $2 million an episode.
Wow.
Which is really high for like a Cartoon Network animated show.
Yeah.
It's not high nowadays for like, premium channel, like big production shows, but for a cartoon, essentially on Cartoon Network,
airing on a kids channel
Saturday mornings, that was really high.
Or
and
Friday
again,
nights.
It pivoted to Saturday mornings at some point.
Right.
But yeah, he just did it because he was into it, and I think it mostly lost money, or maybe the airings didn't make money, but with merch and stuff, maybe it made it up, but whatever. The show looks even better than it did then, and it makes me wonder if I guess Disney Plus just got the budget to throw at it, because you got to imagine The Mandalorian costs a couple million episode.
Oh, definitely. At least I'd say almost probably 10 million episodes.
And there's probably part of it is that they have assets and a lot of the base work established, and again, the technology has just gotten better in those intervening. It's literally been about 12 years or whatever since the Clone Wars started. So they probably just are better at that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But it looks so good. Because you think, well, the first couple seasons Clone Wars are iffy. But then it got pretty good animation style. But then, even still, you compare the Cad Bane in this to the Cad Bane in his last appearance in season 4.
And it's like night and day.
It's night and day. The texture on him, like the detail on his face, it looks incredible. I thought his introduction was great. He's always been one of my maintain that he's like the best bounty hunter.
I know after after he's revealed in the episode, a lot of stuff was going around about the unused arc where he duels Boba Fett and gives him the iconic
you want to get into that?
Getting his helmet. Yeah, sure.
So I know about this. So this will be a spoiler for potentially an upcoming
episode
of the Bad Batch. That's a theory at least, so this could be used. So if you don't want to be worried, I guess tune. I don't know.
But mute the episode. Still listen. Don't
turn it off.
Whatever you're listening on, don't turn it off. Please, love of God, don't turn it off.
So
skip to you know what?
We'll see. So
just listen to it. Be a man. Get over yourself.
A couple years back, there was a panel where it was it might have been the 10th anniversary Clone Wars panel. So maybe this was 3-4 years ago. Dave Filoni got up there and was showing a lot of the unused stuff because when the Clone Wars was canceled, a lot of it was in various stages of production, right?
Right.
So like I said, the lead time on animation is very high. It's over a year in advance, at least for this animation. I guess it could vary for sure. But for the Star Wars animation, the lead time's about a year in advance. And so that means that by the time the Clone Wars was canceled after Season 5 wrapped up, they were already well into production on Season 6. That's why there was 8, 9 episodes that were finished that got put out as the Lost Tales or whatever that was called when they released them on Netflix. And then they had scripts and storyboards in various stages of production for as many as 2 or 3 seasons in advance. They talked about how if it had been able to run as an original course intended, it could have gone to Season 8 potentially.
Wow.
And so some of that got adapted into all kind of forms, like the Darth Maul Son of Dathomir comic. It's a comic book that adapts. It's a 3-issue miniseries that adapts 3 episodes of the show. There's the Dark Disciple novel, which adapts, I think, what was originally intended to be an 8-episode arc of the Clone Wars about
8
Quinlan Vos and Asajj Ventress. So that got adapted into a novel. The Crystal Crisis arc. That was released as animatics, which were in the very early rough stages of animation, kind of just a step beyond storyboards, where there was assets moving, but there wasn't textures, but
the backgrounds weren't finished.
Yeah, but they had the voices, the voice acting was all done because I think that happens sort of early on in the process.
Yeah, so as soon as the script's are done, you can just record all the voice lines.
You can go watch that. That's one that exists on StarWars.com. You can watch essentially 3 or 4 20-minute, again, animatics. They're just really rough early versions of the episodes. But again, they have the James Arnold Taylor and Matt Lanner voices and everything. Mm-hmm. They also had that for the Bad Batch arc. Right. That was released previously as rough animatics, which were then adapted into the Season 7 episodes.
The final season.
Yeah, with some changes and improvements and stuff. I also believe that the Ahsoka arc there, or maybe it was a different Ahsoka arc, was released as stills in that panel. He also got into some that were a couple seasons out that didn't really get far, but there was kind of rough scripts of. Yeah. There's meant to be a Yoda arc on Kashyyyk,
where he's in hiding and stuff, or in
no
exile?
Before that.
Oh, before he's in exile.
Well, yeah, because still during the Clone Wars, it was meant to retcon the whole good relations with the Wookiees I have or whatever. It's going to show how Yoda got to know the Wookiees.
Oh, okay, I see. You know what? You're right. I mixed up Dagobah with Kashyyyk.
Yeah, so it's Kashyyyk. And then
I said that so I wouldn't have to cut it out.
And so then one of the ones was this arc that was going to focus on Cad Bane and Boba Fett. So Boba Fett, obviously, as you shall know, is the clone son of Jango Fett. And that he's a clone of him, but also he was raised as his son.
Because he has a normal aging process.
Yeah. And Jango Fett was potentially the best bounty hunter ever.
Right. And
the general plot of that arc, again, they showed it in storyboards and stuff, and Dave Filoni kind of talks through it, but he doesn't. I don't think there's any voice acting or anything done for that arc. Was that Cad Bane was gonna take Boba under his wing and teach him and train him up and get him to be, I guess, the Boba Fett that everyone expects him to be. I've told you before, Jake, I have my own problems with Boba Fett, especially prior to
The Mandalorian,
the most recent season of Mandalorian. I always thought he was kind of overrated because what he actually does in the movies is thoroughly unimpressive, and I never understood.
For a man of his stature.
Yeah.
Well, he's kind of a jobber in a sense.
A what?
A jobber. It's a wrestling term that's very co-opted in a lot, and I see it a lot on 4chan stuff. I'm not on poll, for the record. Let me make that very clear. I don't go on poll. Just want to make that very clear to Colin, who's listening. But so anyway, what a jobber is that it's a character that is hyped up, given a lot of tell and not show.
Yeah.
So it's in the case of Boba Fett, son of Jango Fett, the greatest bounty hunter. Darth Vader hired him. All these characters say
no
things
disintegrations.
Yeah, exactly. Don't do Boba easy on that one.
We know you're fond of disintegrating people, but you can't do it this time.
Exactly. But when he actually gets in the story, he simply uses a benchmark to show our main characters increase in power.
Yeah.
So, like, Boba Fett, when Luke defeats Boba Fett, it shows that he's stronger than the greatest bounty hunter. So it increases our knowing that, oh, okay, Luke has become stronger and therefore strong enough to eventually face off against Darth Vader and the Emperor in Return of the Jedi. So it happens a lot in fiction. I have a friend who uses jobber all the time.
Oh, yeah?
I wish he'd stop saying it.
But so yeah,
that's what people believe to be Boba Fett.
In the actual movies, Boba Fett
doesn't do anything.
He does next to literally nothing. I would say the one thing he does of note in Empire Strikes Back is that he is the one he realizes what Han is doing, and he's able to successfully track him. He's the one who tracks him to Bespin. So he's got that, right? But he doesn't do any fighting, really, and anything. Again, there's, like, things that are said about him.
Yeah.
Like, no disintegration stuff, which, again, is good. That's kind of what Star Wars has always been good at, is this, like, background sort of just flavor text that builds out the world. Great. And then in Return of the Jedi, he's actually quite unimpressive, right? Luke disarms him pretty easily. He does set Luke on fire. He uses flamethrower to some effect, so whatever. But then a blind Han Solo accidentally defeats him, essentially.
Puts
and
him in
he
the Sarlacc pit.
Tumbles into the pit uselessly.
And is gone forever.
And then from then on, he was put into countless dozens of
comics and such.
Yeah, of expanded universe comics and books and novels where he comes back and he's better than before. But
he ends up falling in the Sarlacc pit like 3 times.
Yeah, he gets back. That's the thing that happens.
Keeps going back to that Sarlacc pit.
And Legends is the expanded universe is kind of rough with continuity. You know, there's there was tiers to it, so it's like some of that was canon even for the expanded universe, some of it wasn't. It's hard to keep track with. But eventually he reclaims his Mandalorian roots and he becomes the Mandalore, the ruler of Mandalore. He's got all kind of stuff, and this was obviously prior to his backstory as being the son of Jango Fett. Even he's got like other non-canon backstories where he's a different character. Whatever. The point is that he looks cool in the movies, and then but doesn't really do anything, and so people wanted to like
give
sort of
something.
Retroactively give him this awesome backstory and stuff. But I've always found that hard because
you know how he ends up.
We know how he ends up, and again, a lot of that would have had to come after he dies. Seemingly in the movies is when everyone decided, nah, he's real good. Look at all the good stuff he's done. Whereas we don't see that in the movies, right?
No. We don't see any of that. Your average Star Wars fan goes, Boba Fett, the guy who fucking died?
Because here's the thing. Everyone's like, he's the best. And again, he is the one to get Han Solo in Episode 5. But the other bounty hunters that are called in Episode 5 there are presumably on comparable levels to him, right?
Because Darth Vader felt it necessary to hire all of them.
Yeah. Why everyone decided to focus in on Boba Fett? I guess he's the coolest looking of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, the reason everyone decided that Boba Fett was so much better than Dengar or Bosk or my boy 4LOM
or Zuckuss.
It's irrelevant because everyone seems like content. I don't know if you really are aware of this, but like Dengar in particular is something of like a bit of a mean character in Star Wars, even among like the actual creators. Yeah. Every time he shows up, it's usually something comical. And again, Zuckuss and 4LOM are the same. They're just ridiculous.
Bosk is fucking Zuckuss.
Bosk is good.
Does he eat people?
Yeah, I think so. He definitely eats things. In the
we eat things.
Yeah. True. In the from a certain point of view, Empire Strikes Back anthology, just to get a real nerd pull on you. It's said that and this is traditional for all Trandoshans, is that Trandoshans being like reptilian are laid in egg clutches.
Right, yeah.
They all hatch.
Oh, doesn't he eat his brothers?
The strongest of them
eats the other ones.
Is meant to eat all the other ones.
I did know that because I had a little book that talked about that.
Yeah,
that's my nerdy shit that I do know.
There
about
you
Star
go.
Wars.
So Bosk was the strongest of them and ate all his siblings. I think he likes to eat Wookiees. I think that's why they hunt Wookiees, the Trandoshans. Bosk is a proper good one. But the rest of I guess IG-88 is good as well. The other ones, though, are also just kind of comical, so I don't know why we all decided Boba Fett's the good one and Dengar's the funny one, but...
Yeah, exactly.
All this is to say, that arc in the Clone Wars was going to be showing how Boba Fett actually got to be good. Because in the Clone Wars, he's varying levels of competent. He gets better as the show progresses. But
Did he show up a lot in the show?
In the Clone Wars? A handful of times. He's in prison for a lot. He shows up and they beat him and they send him to prison and then he gets out.
God bless
he's leading a thing and then... Asajj Ventress locks him in a box. He's really not. He's really not very competent.
Yeah, it seems like he's just. Yeah,
he also really is a child though. Yeah. In his defense. But this arc was going to show it was going to be again Cad Bane taking him under his wing and training him up. It was going to be a bit like a video game across this arc. Boba Fett was going to be leveling up and getting all his armor pieces because in the times that the times that he has appeared in the Clone Wars, he didn't have his proper armor. Mm-hmm. There's a whole thing about like if Boba Fett's armor was Jango's or not.
I thought it was.
The Mandalorian season 2 seems to suggest. I was always under the impression.
No, not even suggest, like...
Well, it shows, right?
She says straight up, you're wearing Jango Fett's armor, and he's a dickhead. We don't like him.
I guess the question is Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan.
There's that part where he, like, brings up the hologram, where he's like, look, here's my tag, here's my receipt, and my armor, and it shows that it was his. People theorized that, like, for a long time that was some second set of Jango's armor.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I was always just happy to say it was the same one, that he just painted it a different color.
Yeah, because he took it off Geonosis?
Yeah, Geonosis. But for some reason, that was, like, a sticking point of people where they felt the need to brag. Unless there's something I'm missing, I always was just content to assume. There is, in one of the arcs in the Clone Wars, he uses Jango Fett's helmet, or a helmet that appears to be Jango Fett,
right,
as a booby trap. He leaves it in Mace Windu's room, and Mace Windu's like, "Oh, I killed this guy," and then it blows up. It's like it's a bit poetic. Boba Fett decides to get poetic with him. Hey man, even bounty hunters can be poetic. And so that was a sticking point for people. I think they were like, "Well, he blew up the helmet." Again, that's one where I'm content to be like, he made a fake helmet to blow up. He didn't blow up his dad's real helmet.
I mean, it's Beskar. Beskar. It might not even all have broken, and he's dumb. He's not as very smart, but he's not an idiot. And the Clone Wars is iffy about its treatment of Beskar in general. The sort of lore wasn't as established as it is now with the Mandalorian, because there's Mandalorians who get shot all the time, and just go down in the Clone Wars. And then fucking the Mandalorian didn't just...
He's literally a tank.
Bombarded.
It's actually kind of ridiculous. That's one of my least favorite parts of that season. Also to say, he was going to build up his armor, he was going to get all his gear, all his stuff, presumably his flamethrower and his grapple hook and his jetpack. And then the sort of twist ending of this arc in the Clone Wars was going to be that Boba Fett was going to be all trained up, and then Cad Bane was going to reveal that his motives for this were not altruistic in any way. They weren't noble. What he wanted to train Boba Fett to be as good as Jango was,
and then kill him.
Especially because Boba Fett is a clone of Jango, right? He's more of a perfect approximation of what Jango would have been than a normal son would be, because he's literally a clone. So
he's gonna be as
should be exactly as good as him.
Yeah.
And the idea was he was gonna train him up, and then he was gonna duel him so that Cad Bane could prove to himself
that he was better than
Jango. He was the better bounty hunter. And then that arc was going to end with them. They get into like a Mexican standoff style duel. They quick draw on each other. It was going to be the show. The Clone Wars rather went through some efforts to kind of humanize Boba Fett, and I guess in the same way that The Mandalorian season 2 has.
Right.
Because this is another thing I've always maintained about Boba Fett. I don't know how people can latch onto him so strongly when he is only ever presented as
a ruthless killer,
a villain. Yeah.
Yeah. A hunter of men.
Exactly. He's a bounty hunter, and bounty hunters in Star Wars are not like bounty hunters in real life, which is just like they're getting like bail runners or whatever you call them. Yeah. Yeah. They hunt down and kill people like it's the Wild West. Yeah. Not even.
Well, the Wild West. They're basically assassins.
They're practically and they're not hired by the courts. Like in real life, bounty hunters are like instruments of the judicial system.
Like kind of
like Star Wars. It's just if you have money, you can go hire assassins. Yeah, you can hire hitmen.
Yeah,
and so it's practically sanctioned. It's no good. And so
that's like if you hired the Spartans to just kill your friends.
So I never thought it was that great when people wanted to focus, and because some people would go with the whole like, nah, he was just a bounty hunter, right? He just took the money, and it's like, one, we never see him in most anything take good jobs. Like 9 times out of 10, he's taking jobs from Darth Vader and the Empire. Like he's taking the bad jobs, and 2, that doesn't make him moral. Right? Yeah. Being like, oh no, he's not designing the jobs. He just is happy to take them. Like that is immoral still. Like I never got that as a defense of him.
It's even the Mandalorian. We like Din. Like Din is the hero, the protagonist that we follow. But at the beginning of the show, before it gets Grogu, that guy at the beginning wasn't like a threat.
Yeah, I think there's a reason.
He just gets hired and he's quiet, and they go, oh, you got him, Mando, which is kind of a slur. I think they're just calling him a slur.
It's a bit much. They don't call him by his name.
They go, hey, Mando.
It's weird. I agree. I think there's a reason that he's gone away from that. That the Mandalorian that Din in the Mandalorian doesn't hunt bounties really any longer
because he's been humanized.
It's immoral. He's been humanized.
Because he's like, well, I got this kid now. Maybe I shouldn't do this stuff.
Yeah. But the Mandalorian goes out of its way to show how Din's lifestyle is having potentially adverse effects on Grogu. Right. So yeah, it's not a good thing, and I never got that about Boba Fett fans. It's like, again though, Star Wars fans get hung up on weird. So there's guys who absolutely like love Darth Vader and stuff. They love that Darth Vader scene in Rogue One, even though that's ostensibly the villain like almost winning.
I like it too, though.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at.
It's a cool, it's a very intense, cool scene, and I like it because. But again, I think it bridges Rogue One into the.
I think people like it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I definitely have to.
You're supposed to be like. You're supposed to be like, wow, this is intense. I hope they get it out. It almost looks like they're gonna lose. And I think some people watching that like, man, I hope Darth Vader gets some.
I wish it was all this. I wish we had an hour-and-a-half long movie of Darth Vader, the villain. That'd be basically if you watched a movie of Hitler just shooting Jews in a line.
I don't know if it's quite that.
Maybe not that, but
it's
like
close. Darth Vader is literally the worst.
Maybe not Hitler, a high member of the SS. Like, because
maybe not even, but it would just be like if it was a World War II movie where the Germans just won really well,
or it's just like a period of time where they were winning before America joined or something.
You wouldn't want to watch that,
or if you just watched the invasion of Poland
and you were just like, wow, but
the Germans were the good guys.
Look at how good the Blitzkrieg worked in France. If it was a movie just called Blitzkrieg, and it was just the Germans rolling into France, stomping them, and then at the end...
Or you taking the Rhineland, taking Yugoslavia or something.
And at the end, it's just kind of like, man, and it's just a German, like, looking off in the distance like England's next. And that's how it ended. That'd be no good.
I mean, I'd watch the sequel because, fuck England. Unless if you're from England and you're listening, you're the good one.
But so...
You're the good ones from England.
So in that arc, they went out of their way to kind of humanize Boba Fett because the way that Cad Bane eventually pressures him into a duel, because I think it's one of those scenarios where he's like, I don't want to fight you, you're my mentor, we don't have to be like this.
Yeah.
And he's
like, no, we're bounty hunters. Come on, we gotta do it.
Yeah, you don't understand. It's gonna be how it is, or whatever the hell Cad Bane sounds
like. Does he talk like that?
He's like gravelly, you know him.
Hey,
it's me, Cad Bane.
No, I don't think he talks like that. I think he talks more like a cool Western gunslinger gravelly.
He's kind of like, how you doing, little lady?
No, I think he's like a Clint Eastwood.
But he's got his weird voice.
It's them with loaded guns and men who dig. It's a
That's
terrible Clint Eastwood impression.
But so he was gonna like the way it went in that is that he had like some civilians at gunpoint. He's like, Boba, if you don't fight me, I'm gonna kill them. They have their little duel, right?
Yeah.
Cad Bane. It ends with Cad Bane
getting shot in the head
on the ground, and Boba Fett has had his helmet knocked off by Cad Bane's shot, but it's a glancing blow on his forehead, and that's how
he gets the dent.
Boba Fett gets his dent on his helmet. Yeah, and that was presumably where Cad Bane would have died. Was I think the implication? I think they said that even in the initial script of it, it wasn't like definitive. I think the understanding was that that's where he would meet his demise, because he's never appeared in anything past that alive
until now.
Until now, yes. Because of the timeline of this show, this would have to take place after that arc, if it happened. And that's why I think that should tie it back to how we got onto this. People are theorizing that potentially that arc could happen, maybe in some kind of like trimmed down form, just an episode, 1 or 2 off episodes.
Yeah.
Somehow tied into where that happens in this show. That would mean that the storyline obviously got moved back a little bit chronologically, but thankfully it's one of the arcs of the Clone Wars that obviously doesn't take place with the war itself as a major focus, right?
Right, of course.
It was about the bounty hunter as a side thing, so it wasn't really about the war and the clones and stuff. So you could still move it back a couple months, and it would still work, I think. Again, it presents a little problems because the thing about all the unfinished Clone Wars material is that internally at Lucasfilm, it's understood to be canon because those episodes were worked on by George Lucas and they were like still in production when he sold and all. Those are understood to be George's vision, and those again are internally treated as canon. Again, all the ones we talked about that are like we know of, and presumably some that is not really public, but like they know of internally, for the most part treated as canon. Unless they really, need to contradict it for something important. You kind of just assume that's how it goes. So even before the Bad Batch arc of the Clone Wars came out, right? The Bad Batch were real. They existed and did the stuff they did in that arc and stuff. For the past 10 years or whatever, a little less than that, I guess 8 years now since the Clone Wars got officially canceled, they've been operating under the assumption that that duel happens, Boba Fett wins and kills Cad Bane. So that's presumably why he hasn't showed up in anything since then, but right. I guess, it'd be cool to see it in this show.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe they'll still, just continue that arc and just kill him, so it stays internally consistent.
I don't know how they would tie that in, like, other than literally just, because, the Bad Batch is not an anthology. Every episode so far has focused on the Bad Batch, so, like, I don't know how you're going to do an episode that just has Cad Bane and Boba Fett in it.
Just hanging out.
Without any of the
Bad
Batch.
Oh boy, I'm so glad the Bad Batch is in here. Maybe they'll pull, to circle back to Rick and Morty, they'll pull Rick Lantis. They'll be like, well, Omega, let's go do a mission. And then it hard cuts.
And then...
Meanwhile, somewhere in the Outer Rim, and it's like, Boba.
And then at the very end...
It's me, Cad Bane. It's me, Boba.
And then at the very end, it cuts back to the Bad Batch, and they're like, man, that mission sure went well.
Man, Tech, I can't believe you did that. Just like, yes, of course, I had the calculations. Tech, I can't believe you did that, Tech.
Hopefully.
Rika, do you think Cad Bane's still alive out there? I hope so.
Oh, I hope so.
I like that Cad Bane fella.
Oh, one last thing I want to mention, because I think we should probably I could tack off of this in a second.
Oh, yeah,
here.
we were talking for like 50 minutes just about Star Wars.
I love Star Wars. I could do it forever.
But we're not. We will never.
No.
Listeners, I won't let him.
So, one last thing I wanted to mention. This is going to get real niche for you, buddy.
Oh, dear God.
The sound director. I should get his title right. If you'll allow me a moment. So, David W. Collins was the sound director on the 2004 LucasArts video game, Republic Commando, right?
Right.
Great video. Anyone's not played it. It recently got
remixed,
ported for the Switch.
Oh, dude.
Into that in the PS4.
Who the fuck's playing PS4 anymore? It's the future.
It's probably on the PS5 then as well. So if you're into that, get after it.
There are no games for the PS5. Don't you know that?
It's real good. It's like this tactical first-person shooter where you are in control of the leader of this squad of clone commandos, and there's 3 others. It's just real good. It's tactical. There's like cover-based stuff. You can direct them to do stuff. It's just a fun game.
Right.
It's real good. It's one of my favorite games from like my childhood of Star Wars. It's up there for me with like Star Wars Battlefront 2 and probably Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy is like some of the best of that sort of era.
Right.
But anyways, David W. Collins was the sound director on that game, and he is also now the sound designer, editor, and mixer on The Bad Batch.
Oh.
In some ways you might be like, well, from Star Wars project to Star Wars project, it's probably not that big a deal, right?
Right.
In that a lot of the Star Wars sounds just kind of sound the same. But David W. Collins has snuck in a few things, which, again, sound just internally consistent as Star Wars. You're like, oh, that's just a Star Wars sound. But they are kind of specifically, if you've played the game, you would like kind of specifically notice them as like the versions from
the game itself.
Yeah. I think the thermal detonator he uses in one of the episodes is like the direct thermal detonator sound from that game. And the coolest one to me, this one absolutely blew my mind. Again, this is like a really niche thing that probably only a handful of people even got. In the most recent episode, after Hunter loses the duel
to Cad Bane,
and the Bad Batch, and then they find him and they revive him. Right. I don't know what the word, because that's literally what it is. In the game, if you go down, your squad can still revive you if they're all up, right? It's the sound they've taken, the sound of like the sort of defibrillator type device they use, and the sound of his helmet turning back on, and when he's up, that HUD that he's sticking through, that is the HUD from the game.
Really?
Essentially, yeah. So, and that's essentially the view that you get in the game if you go down and then you get picked up. Because again, the game is first person. So that little first person sequence, like I said, the sound is the exact same. It's really cool. I don't know. It really tickled me.
That sounds pretty cool.
I thought it was really neat. Because it's him, again, in that game you can be revived. So it's cool that that's like now a canon thing. Members of the Batch revived him and picked him up, and then he's on his feet. It's really cool. I just like that. It's something I felt like adding.
It's pretty cool.
Like I said, apparently some of the other sounds, I didn't take note until that happened. And I was like, whoa, this is something. And then I looked into it, and that's how I uncovered this. It's really cool sound. Cool. Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot. So that in particular, like, it's kind of a nothing thing in the terms of the episode. It's just like, oh, they revived him, and they got him up on his feet, and they got out of there. But I was like, that's super cool. So yeah, really excited for the back half of that show.
How many episodes? 16?
16. So yeah,
this should take us through August, right?
Yep. So this was proper, the mid-season finale. And I would say it felt like that. It was the most, I would say, significant episode since the premiere as far as, like, stuff happening. Again, not that those other episodes are no good, but as far as, like, stuff moving and progressing, it feels like a mid-season finale. Even though there's no break between the next episode and this, there's no, like, extended break or anything. I think they did good pacing. So then, presumably next week, it'll be pretty good again, and we'll have a bit of a build to the finale.
We have not watched episodes 9 yet.
No.
We just want to talk 1 through 8 because we have not to get through.
Yeah.
So next week we'll talk about 9 and 10, and then we'll go for the last.
We'll talk about like
episodes. We'll be once a week. We'll do the one
probably
a week.
Yeah. We'll probably be doing those 1 week. I guess so. Then we talked about it enough. Next week we can talk about predictions for the upcoming.
So I guess that's Knack Attack on the Bad Batch.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking for 53 minutes. I might cut out my
probably somebody will get cut out. But...
Yeah, probably the ums and ahs. I might cut our banter out. Who knows? Maybe I'll cut none of it out. We might cut for content in the second episode.
So we want to Knack Attack
on the Loki episode 3. Mm-hmm. One thing I will start out with strong is that I very much enjoy that all the members are variants.
Yeah,
because I remember mentioning in the podcast this week that do they have souls or what are they? And they're just people from Earth.
That totally stood out to me as well in episode 2 when Mobius seemed to believe that he had been created by
for the sole purpose.
I was like, I don't know about that. That seems weird because it brings up a number of implications. Because one, if that was true, that's bad in its own way that they're creating beings just to live and serve and like. Because again, Mobius believed that like when they finished or whatever, he would just cease to exist.
And he was okay with that.
Kind of weird. Yeah, it was a whole thing.
And their minds are almost kind of shattered from existing for hundreds of years.
I agree. I liked that we fully... Because, again, we talked about last week. It seems like the Time Variance Authority is the villains of this show. Yeah. It obviously, first it's presented to be the variant Loki, who we now know is Sylvie.
Sylvie, yes.
But, yeah, I think it was kind of obvious from the get-go, probably. Again, from that first episode, when you get into, like, these guys are, like, meddling with, like, free will and stuff, and it seems like this isn't...
Which is also interesting is that they go, from her time on Earth, they're all variants, which may lead into the fact that Kang may be very closely connected to the Time Variance Authority, because he is a human in the comics. And there don't seem to be any aliens or anything. That this seems to be a very human affair.
So I guess this is another episode that didn't move the main plot forward a ton, right?
Right.
It was again a lot of character development. I guess.
Filler. I mean, for one thing we can point out is that I guess they confirmed the Loki's bi. Which,
yeah, they did. That was fun.
Which is fun.
I like that.
I like how they kind of did it subtly. They just kind of went, this is kind of what it is, and leave it.
Yeah.
Which I mean,
if you're familiar with like the Loki of like proper Norse mythology, right? He gets way into it.
Yeah, I mean,
if anything,
he becomes a horse and fucks a horse.
I was gonna say,
and
he becomes a woman.
Horse.
He's been pregnant and stuff. He gives birth. Like it's a whole thing.
In the Norse mythology, he has 3 kids. His 3 kids are Fenrir, the wolf, the wolf who eats the sun, the Midgard serpent, the big snake that wraps around Midgard, and Hel, the goddess, and the horse with 6 legs.
6 legs. Yeah.
So. Talk about a fucking family reunion. He just kind of gives birth to everything.
Yeah, in the traditional myth, Loki is essentially, I guess you'd say trans, right? So like
trans or gender fluid, as this file says.
As this file says in the
which
show.
Which is very accurate.
Yeah, this is something like...
And it's fine they don't make a big deal of it, because, like, it's not. Like, who gives a shit? It doesn't make Loki...
He's like a god...
A mortal alien.
Yeah, alien thing. Like, it kind of makes sense he wouldn't be confined by art.
Preconceived
if you were alive for that long, you probably would just...
Probably fuck a dude.
Yeah, you probably mess with it regardless. Why wouldn't you?
Kiss a guy, see what you like it. I mean,
yeah, he's not even really human, so like, I like that as well. I agree.
I don't see any problem with it.
I don't necessarily like. Well, again, I don't see how anyone could whine about like this being like forced or Disney's gone too PC or whatever, because again, that's literally kind of an essential element of Loki from the myths.
Yeah, like even outside the Marvel comics are based on, Loki is a thousands of year old character from myth.
Yeah, he's literally, whatever you call it, like queer-coded in the original myths.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, what do you call him, snake-coded? Because he gave birth to a big fucking snake?
Exactly.
Like,
he's trans, he's gay, whatever.
Who cares? He's a god. He's magic.
So I did agree. I thought that was cool. I guess we'll probably get into this like more in the future episodes. But so, do you think Sylvie is
a Loki?
Started off as a Loki that looked like Tom Hiddleston, and like she's changed or somehow?
No,
or like, do you think she was always I guess whatever you call it?
I think she's always just a female version of Loki. I think it's just kind of a multiverse thing.
Yeah.
And I think over time she's abandoned the Loki name because she just wants. Because, again, she's been alive for God knows how long because she's been jumping through time.
Yeah, so I guess, again, we don't get into a ton of it. It's kind of like just hints here and there. But so it seems like her motivation is that she wants to...
create the multiverse.
Is that what you think it is?
I think so.
I was just going to say dismantle, like, the Time Variance Authority, right? Because
well,
in the last episode...
I feel like those are one and the same.
Maybe you're right. I suppose you're right. So in the second episode there, when he's like, hey, let's team up and take over the Time Variance Authority, and she's like, no, I don't want to take over. I think the implication there was like, no, I'm just going to burn it to the ground.
Yeah.
It's no good. It shouldn't exist.
Destroy the wheel.
Yeah. I'm going to break. Yeah. I'm not going to
rise. I'm going to be the top of the wheel. I'm going to break the wheel.
I'm not going to stop the wheel.
No,
I'm going to break it. So
my queen, Daenerys Targaryen.
So like, I kind of like that. And it seems like in this, because again, like I said, from the beginning, it seemed like they're the bad guys. Like, it seems like that's what needs to happen. And so, in this episode, it seems like her motivation is that essentially been singled out as variant since, like, she was very young, right? That seems to be the implication, I think, right? That as a child, she was singled out as a variant, and the Time Variance Authority has been hunting her since I guess. Again, it gets into, like, the weird head-hurty time travel stuff that is hard to wrap your head around
because she's always jumping back to the same points in time, but she always,
because again
her body's moving forward.
They exist outside of time, so it's weird how they should let that happen. Because why don't you just go back to a point just before that and kill her or something?
It's weird. I mean, they say you gotta catch it in real time, but how come?
Yeah, it seems like time progresses somehow, but also
prune her.
It's quite trippy, so it's not worth thinking about, I think. But yeah, essentially it seems like her motivation is that she's been around for a while trying to take them down and escape them because they hunted her down and presumably killed her family, I guess. So do you think, I guess, just to speculate a little, like that she had a sort of Loki, a traditional Loki-esque upbringing, as in like at least the Marvel version of Loki, and that she was raised on Asgard by Odin and Freya.
Yeah, I think so.
Because when Loki, I think it just makes sense to call him Loki and Sylvie, right?
Yeah.
So when Loki's talking about his mother, and that's where he learned his magic, what did she say? Something about how like she barely remembers her mother, but that's also where she got some of hers or whatever.
Yeah, I think so. I believe so. So yeah, I think it's not impossible to think that she would have turned into the Loki we know, in a sense, because she would have like learned all the magic and kind of had a rivalry with maybe a girl version of Thor or some other variation on that. But she just didn't get it because she was a very I don't know, just a variant.
Yeah, for whatever reason, again, we don't really know what the Time Variance Authority's end goals are or what that even really means other than what they've said, which is like, oh no, we gotta prune them because otherwise the timeline, if it spreads off, if it branches off too far and goes red, it's gone. Everything will be ruined, right?
But probably not, though.
Probably not. I think that's the case. Probably that just means like a branch will exist, and that's probably okay.
And you can't destroy it.
Yeah. It's kind of like if we're in the same universe, right? You go off like the Endgame style time travel. That would just make a different path, and I think that's okay. I don't think that's inherently bad.
And I think,
if anything,
because they said the Time Variance Authority are busy like breaking it off from the infinite branches of reality, so maybe it just takes more energy, like because they've already destroyed everything once and made it one timeline. So because there's that war, and then they reset everything. So maybe when it goes beyond the red line, the timekeepers have to step in and actually like use an insane amount of power to break that branch and really cut it and burn it.
I think what the red line really means is that it's not that it's something that's going to like break reality or something. It's just something that's going to interfere with the timekeepers' plans, whatever those still may be. So yeah, in that first episode, when is it the second one when they show all the variant Lokis and like there's all these different types? It could be that she's like Loki-esque. In terms of, I think we'll probably get a little more of her backstory.
I know some people think she's Enchantress.
Yeah, I've seen that float around. I guess that could be. But again, it seems like everyone seems pretty certain that she is Loki. I guess she could be Enchantress in the way that, like, you know, the MCU version of Enchantress is kind of
just all a variant
like
of Loki.
Variant of Loki or whatever. But yeah, I'm interested to see that, I guess. Because she doesn't really have all the same powers and, like, abilities as...
Because Loki, she doesn't know how Loki makes things disappear. Yeah, which seems to be, like, a very base power that... And she seems to have magic and raw magic.
Yeah, she can do that mind control sort of thing.
He can't.
That he doesn't recognize, which is interesting.
I think Loki, obviously, because they're both Loki, he can do it, but I think his mother just never taught him.
I would totally agree, and I think... so this is a bit of a theory, if you'll allow me.
Ooh, theory time.
So from this episode. So in this episode, right, they're trying to get to that arc to get the battery juice or whatever to fill up their time pad.
To leave all those people to die in the apocalypse. Yeah.
But that's already going to happen.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a moral conundrum, but maybe not. It's a bit of a trolley problem.
Like if you already knew the trolley was supposed to happen.
Yeah, but so when they're on the train, right, and they're talking about it, and Loki's like, how do you do that? And she kind of tells him, and then she like falls asleep and wakes up. I've seen people theorize that potentially this whole episode took place in Loki's head and that it was an illusion or that she was projecting. But when I saw the episode, my theory was that when she falls asleep and then wakes up, that maybe everything from then on is Loki projecting to her. Because again, Loki seems to be better at magic than her, like just straight up. Yeah. And again, if they're the same being, essentially, there's no reason that if she can do it that he shouldn't be able to. So my running theory here is that
it was all a dream.
Everything from then on is a dream, whatever illusion that he's projecting to her.
Because it would almost go back in her, because I feel like that would make sense, because in the beginning of the episode, we see what she did to that one agent to figure out where the timekeepers are by making that illusion in her head. Mm-hmm. So it almost makes sense, and it would kind of fix the problem, because they're really just kind of caught, like, the Ark is destroyed, there's no way off the planet.
At the end of the episode, if it is just all happened...
In real time,
I'm not sure where they're going to go from there. Other than, I guess, just the Time Variance Authority could, like Mobius and them could just show up and bail them out.
Yeah, be like, Loki, we found you. Owen Wilson.
Yeah, so I guess that could happen, but... And to be honest, like I said, that is just a theory that I formulated just by seeing. I was like, I feel like this could be where this is going. By the end of the episode, though, I don't really see to what end that would be. Because the theory that it was been an illusion that Sylvie was projecting is that she's trying to find out where he stashed the tempad or whatever. Whereas if it's one that Loki's doing to her, I don't know what he would be trying to gain from her.
More information?
Yeah.
Because if he goes on a journey, then he can replicate all the things, but he's in no harm. Like, he can kind of draw things, because he draws those things out of her. He draws out him being drunk and makes her reveal this stuff, makes her angry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like he's kind of making her show.
I could believe that that's all because like Loki isn't necessarily the type like that from the stuff we've seen in the MCU, right? To just get like drunk, right? That's not really
to
his
let his
type.
guard down.
Yeah, that's like a Thor thing, I guess. Like that's not really him. So yeah, all that to me, I was like, I feel like there's something fishy here, and I think again, I think that could be what it is. It could not be. Again, I'm not sure if I totally understand where the motivation would. But yeah, that was just my thought. And like I said, when I thought that, I was kind of like, I kind of was under the assumption that it would get resolved in that episode, which it didn't, which makes me maybe a little more worried that it's not the case. Unless they just wanted to stew for a week, and then sort of the beginning of next week's episode, they'll be like, yeah, it turns out that was all Loki projected. Because she gets into a pretty good detail about how it would work, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, if they're like real weak, it's kind of like a Jedi mind trick, right? Like if they're real weak, I can just totally kind of overpower and do what I want. But if they're stronger willed, I can't just override it. I sort of have to like
you have to convince them.
You got to convince them, and they're along for the ride with you. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that again, that would all line up with what we see in the back half of that episode. Is that he's bringing her along and he's making it convincing, but maybe that was him because again, he told her. And then he figured it out and he put it to work.
I think now that is a good theory, but I'm gonna disagree with it completely. Mm-hmm. Because I think while that is a good theory, I don't think there's enough episodes to allow something like that to happen. Like if this was a 10-episode series and we had 6 left, I'd be like, okay, because I think Mobius coming in and saving them works because then he can kind of convince Mobius, who Tom Hiddleston has come out and said that Loki trusts Mobius. Like they have kind of a kinship.
They have like a buddy cop thing.
Yeah, buddy cop bond. So I think bringing Mobius into the fold is a lot easier to expose than the Timekeepers, because then Mobius gets to see, and we kind of get more. It's not just Loki doing this, and at the end he has to face off against Mobius.
No, I totally agree. Like I said, that was kind of the theory that I was concocting in the middle of the episode, and then by the end, like I said, when it wasn't resolved or really like pointed to anyway, I was kind of like, well, maybe there really isn't anything. Again, I kind of think they is a bit of Chekhov's gun, maybe. Is like having this in-depth explanation of it. I think people, because again, the fact that I came up with this theory and then I've seen other people theorize, it seems to be that like because of the way they did that, a lot of people walked away from that like somebody was doing an illusion. Because either people again, either the way I presented it, or people think that even earlier in the episode, Sylvie had been eluding him. Like the whole most of the episode was an illusion, not even just the back half. So I think that could be a bit of a Chekhov's gun. Like, well, they talked about it a lot. They bring up the illusion thing, so like one of them's under the illusion, or again, it could just be neither of them are, or it could come up later in the season.
Very possible. What could happen is maybe. Well, this goes on the theory that the Timekeepers are 3 real people, are 3 real beings that exist, and not just like
that's
the Timekeepers are real, promise, but it's like a Wizard of Oz. Man behind the curtain, pay no attention.
I've seen a lot of people starting to theorize that like,
but if they're
maybe
real,
they never existed at all.
Loki, since he is so much more powerful than Sylvia, and Sylvia could obviously, I think she'll become more powerful as well. Mm-hmm. The 2 of them will amplify each other, and maybe they'll just put them in one big illusion to believe that they are still being Timekeepers while dismantling the TVA around them and leaving them in a room for eternity to tear up to like make their timeline.
So you're saying that this illusion stuff, maybe it wasn't directly at play in this episode, but it
will come up in the finale,
right? Because that's even under my Chekhov's gun illusion there within the same season would still count, right? If they bring up the illusions and they explain it in depth, and then 3 episodes from now they use it. That would still work.
I mean, WandaVision kind of works on that.
Yeah, exactly.
They bring up things and you go, "What's up with that?" And then it's slowly explained. I mean, Agatha all along is one big Chekhov's gun in a sense.
Exactly. So I could see it going either way. But again, that was just the thing that I was concocting. I was like, he's acting a little weird. She just woke up from a nap. I was like, is he illusioning her? So yeah, that's just my theory. I just figured I'd get out there.
Well, I'm gonna hack attack real quick.
All right.
Just do a quick little topic that won't take too long.
Like that.
A buddy of mine was texting me because I told him to get into Seinfeld and stuff because I got him into Sunny with me this last year when I was off at school, and he was telling me that they actually took it off Hulu, and apparently it will come to Netflix in the fall.
The fall?
Yeah, which,
So is it just in limbo right now?
Yeah, it's just in that fucking limbo they put everything in when they move it around.
Gee whiz. I was just about to watch Seinfeld again.
I was thinking about watching it as well, but I like that it's on Netflix. It's not on
Hulu anymore?
Because I get to watch without ads, because I have Netflix.
I have ad-free Hulu already, well, I'm not poor. So.
Okay, whatever. Let's not be classist now.
So
this is a PC podcast.
Oh, gosh. It's moving to Netflix then?
Yes, so that's something
to watch it there.
I'm excited about. And, hey, listeners, if a little inside baseball. We are both very big It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia fans. Massive. We love this show.
It's probably my favorite.
I would say
like sitcom.
I would agree.
One of my favorite TV shows. Just period.
I would also have to agree with that. Birds of a feather in a sense. Mm-hmm. So we will be talking about that show when season 15 appears, also in the fall. And we'll most definitely talk about Seinfeld. Now, how we talk about it, we haven't really discussed it. It will probably come up naturally. But if you listeners, maybe Colin, if we get 2 more listeners, so 3 whole listeners, you want to do comparisons, because I believe there are. Well, I won't get into it now. Comparisons between the 2 shows that can be drawn, and how they're written and why they're so good. If you want that, just email us at our email, which I will drop in the podcast. Yeah. But I just thought that was a little interesting thing to bring up. So, did you want Ack Attack at all? I mean, we're at about an hour 15 right now, so.
I guess I could, in the same way you just did, I could Ack Attack into a couple things that we could just set up for the future potentially here.
Of course, yeah, go ahead.
So, we did a big bunch of the Bad Batch episodes here. Just like kind of we did a recap of the first 2 episodes of Loki last week. But from here on, we should get into a rhythm here where it's going to be like 1 in a week, so we could probably again, Star Wars, so like I could end up talking for hours regardless.
Star Wars, Marvel. Presumably we could talk about any sort of thing for
presumably with the Loki and Bad Batch episodes, now that we're down to 1 a time here.
Not going to be as long.
Yeah, we probably won't go as long. So you joked that we could watch the Droids cartoon from
the
1985.
Yes.
That's now on Disney Plus, which I would watch just for a lark. We could just do that whole
series real quick.
The whole series, talk about it just talk once.
Get an episode to it.
And then we could also, if we do that and enjoy it all, there's the Ewoks show, which is like a very similar thing. And then in that same
vein,
there's the in that same section on Disney Plus in the Star Wars vintage section.
Right.
There's Star Wars Clone Wars, which I think I think Ewoks and Droids could be funny to talk about, but I think Star Wars Clone Wars is genuinely good. Yeah. So I think that could be cool to watch. Maybe we do them in that order of like release order though.
Yeah, I think that'd be good because then we can see the trend. We can make fun of the 2 and be like, oh, now we're at the good one.
I don't know if it's as good as people say. That's a Star Wars thing that a lot of people literally say is
live and die by.
Is potentially, it's one of those things where like this is maybe the best Star Wars thing ever. I don't know if I'd give it that much credit, but I do think it's genuinely good. And again, it's like it was the I guess 4th 2D animation thing that Star Wars did.
Right.
So yeah, if anything, before Droids, if we really wanted to do it properly, we could start with the Tale of the Faithful Wookiee, which is
we're getting real deep cut now.
I think that's what it's called. That's on Disney Plus right now. That is the animated bit from the Star Wars Holiday Special, which includes the first appearance of Boba Fett.
That's the first appearance of Boba Fett?
Yeah. So that's in there. So we could actually watch that first and just talk. I mean, that's even shorter. And then just do a little recurring segment where we talk about
the episode of
vintage Star Wars 2D animation just while the Bad Batch is going on and stuff. Yeah, and then I think the other thing we're going to do is we're probably going to talk about Rick and Morty
every week,
weekly, if there's anything to, again. And I will say with because obviously we didn't talk about the Bad Batch at all last week. I wouldn't be opposed to, if there's nothing particularly interesting week to week, we could save up an episode or 2 of,
and then just have a big kind of thesis thing
of the Bad Batch, or even Loki if it comes to that, or
I don't know about Loki because Loki's only 6. We only got 3 left.
Yeah, it's probably gonna. I have heard actually that they said that from here on it's gonna really start to kick off.
I mean we're kind of in that point.
So yeah. Loki probably not, but yeah, for the Bad Batch, I wouldn't be opposed to if we get a couple more quote unquote filler episodes in there to just save them up, and the same could go for Rick and Morty. We don't have to make that a weekly thing, but now that that's back, we'll probably touch on it. Like we like Rick and Morty to varying levels. You probably have some things to say.
I got opinions over Rick
and then
Morty.
The last one I had is that all of Marvel's MODOK, the animated show, is on Hulu.
Before the episode started off mic.
That's another one we could just watch we just binge it and then just talk about it in one big segment. I've not seen anyone talk about it. I don't know if it's good or not, or if anyone cares.
I watched the first episode. I don't like the art style.
Flown a bit under the radar. Like, it seems like they kind of gave up on it before it even came out. It's one of those ones where they're like, don't know about this. It's probably the type of thing where Disney's already like decided prematurely that they didn't want to really
pour it.
Yeah, they're not gonna like do a second season or anything probably, but they had it done, so like we may as well put it out. That exists. We could again just binge. Again, I haven't seen anyone talk about it. I don't think they put a lot of money into ads or anything because they.
I remember seeing a couple ads only through Hulu when you would through Hulu they had ads, but that's only because it's a Hulu show, so that's not really indicative of.
I mean, I like Patton Oswalt though.
I think he's very funny.
So I think it could be.
I don't.
We'll watch a couple episodes and see if it's worth talking about.
I have opinions about MODOK. I will save those opinions.
Sure.
Because I could just go on forever about my opinions about MODOK and like the show in general.
Yeah.
I've seen the first episode, but we'll save those for another time. We're running about an hour 20. That's probably a good place I need to stop.
I'd say so.
So so I think we'll stop out right here. As always, thanks for listening. Really appreciate anyone listening to this podcast. Yeah. Wherever you're listening to it, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, wherever. We just appreciate it. Again, if you want to email us about comments, questions, concerns, thoughts.
Wait, so just real quick, you mentioned, so where are we at right now?
Currently,
obviously you can read, like, we have the overarching, the Podbean
account. We have a Podbean, the Yak Attack with J and Z. That's for everything, as a general rule.
Then, where are we on right now?
We are on Podbean, of course, which is our feed. We are on YouTube every week at the same channel. We are on Spotify. We are on Amazon/Audible. And I am currently in the midst of putting it on Apple Podcasts. That should be done this week and next week at the absolute latest. I can't imagine it would take that much longer. But yeah, if you find us on any of these, give us a like, give us a review, leave a comment, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your enemies. But yeah, as always,
we also started, just real quick, we started a Twitter.
We have a Twitter as well. Follow us on Twitter.
That's at Attack J-A-Z, just like all the other ones.
Yeah, all of it.
Attack Jazz.
Yeah, and that exactly is our email. Find us there. This is really jumbled. I gotta really cut this down. We'll get a better handle on it. As always, this is written by us, produced by us. Everything was made by us except for our logo. I didn't shout out the guy who made our logo last time. He's a very good friend of mine. His name is Jeffrey Gonzalez. So our logo was by a man named Jeffrey Gonzalez, and you can follow him on Instagram at inkocean.jpg. Again, that is inkocean.jpg. He does a lot of art. He has a Redbubble account. So yeah, if you're ever interested in like 2D animation kind of art style, that's kind of like his skill, what he focuses on the most. Give him a shout. Tell him the podcast sent you. Yeah, anything like that. And I'd really appreciate that. Links, I'll figure out how to put links in if anybody's interested. Email if you want a link, and I'll send a link. But yeah, I think we're going to end it right here at about almost an hour and 20. Probably won't be that time to edit this down. But thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.